Hi guys. So I just want to touch base and explain a little bit more about what happened in Act 2, Scenes 3, 4, and 5. So in Act 2, Scene 3, Romeo goes to visit Friar Laurence. Now, Friar Laurence is a priest, but I want you to think of him as Romeo's mentor, somebody who's always there for Romeo. In fact, he's more of a father figure in this play than Lord Montague is. So what Friar Laurence says and does really means a lot to Romeo. He takes it very seriously. So Romeo goes to visit Friar Laurence, and the purpose of this visit is to ask Friar Laurence if he will marry Romeo and Juliet together. And at first, Friar Laurence is very confused because just yesterday Romeo was upset and depressed about Rosaline not loving him back, and now he's coming to him with a new person he's in love with, and not only is he in love with this new person, but he's planning on marrying this person. So Friar Laurence is a little wary, and then when Romeo tells him who it is, he becomes really wary because, as everybody in Verona knows, the Capulets and the Montagues don't get along. However, Friar Laurence does eventually agree to allow Romeo and Juliet to get married and to actually perform the ritual because he believes that if Romeo and Juliet get married, possibly this could unite the two families. And then finally, this ancient grudge between the Capulets and the Montagues will be done. So that's Act 2, Scene 3. So at this point, the two have agreed to get married. The marriage is set up. They have some guy who's going to do it. And now Romeo just needs to talk to the person who Juliet is going to send. And who is Juliet going to send? None other than her mentor and basically her parent, the nurse. So Juliet goes to send the nurse, and the nurse finds Romeo and his friends out in the city square. And Romeo and his friends are kind of just talking and having a good time. Mercutio's happy because Romeo is back to his old self, but Benvolio is a little worried because while Romeo was out planning this marriage and courting Juliet, a letter came to the Montague home. And the letter is from Tybalt, and Tybalt is basically calling Romeo out and asking him to duel. Okay, so this is a really bad situation for Romeo because, as we read in the scene, Tybalt is a really amazing fighter. Mercutio talks about that in his paragraph where he's kind of comparing Tybalt's moves to something that you would find in music, right? He sticks to this really good rhythm, and it's like a masterpiece when he fights. So they're kind of talking about that. The nurse comes. Mercutio is a jerk to her because Mercutio thinks he's funny, and so the nurse is kind of perturbed because Romeo didn't like immediately help her out with the situation, and Romeo's like, I'm sorry, but like what did Juliet say? And basically the nurse is like, listen, she's into you, she's excited about this, but if you break her heart, like, I'm gonna be really mad. So if you are not fully into this, tell me now and I'll let her down easy. And Romeo says, no, I'm fully into this, and I've already set up our wedding, so tell Juliet to meet me at Friar Lawrence's cell this afternoon, where she will be married. So that is the end of Act 2, Scene 4. We have the nurse then going back to the Capulet mansion to tell Juliet the good news. And that is where we are at Act 2, Scene 5. The nurse goes back to the Capulet mansion, talks to Juliet. She's kind of playing with Juliet a little bit, toying with her, keeping the information from her at first, not telling her what Romeo said. And it's a really funny exchange between the two of them. It shows us their relationship really well, and just, the familiarity and the fun that they have together. But finally Juliet's like, no, seriously, tell me what he said. And the nurse says, well, do you have leave to go to shrift today? Do you have leave to go to confession? Are you allowed to go to confession today? And Juliet says, yes, I am. And the nurse says, well, then go to confession, and there you will find a husband to make you a wife. And that is the end of Act 2, Scene 5. Juliet is off to get ready to go to her wedding. Now, Act 2, Scene 6 is extremely short. In the book, it's like a page long. And Act 2, Scene 6 is simply their marriage scene, where Friar Laurence is performing the marriage. And the thing here, just that I want to point out, is that it's secret, so it's not like this big thing where they have like bridesmaids and groomsmen and things like that. It's just Romeo and Juliet and the friar in most cases. In some of the adaptations, you'll see the nurse there as well as like a witness. And also I think some of the directors add her in because she's like the other adult involved in this, right? There's Romeo and there's Juliet, and then there are two adults who are allowing this to happen secretly, which, depending on how you feel, you might not be bothered by that. Me as an adult, if one of you came to me and said, hey, I'm 13 years old and I want to secretly get married to this person my family hates, I'd be like, cool, I'm gonna go tell your family now so that nothing bad happens. Like, I'm sorry, but I would not keep that secret. I would get help and make sure that everything is cool. But these two adults, they don't do that. So some directors might put the nurse in to just show that she's like equally responsible for this happening as well as the friar. So the other thing that I want to just point out in Act 2, Scene 6 is that Friar Laurence has this speech where he's basically telling Romeo, you know, when you start a relationship so passionately, it often ends passionately, and that passion at the end can sometimes be violent, right? These violent beginnings often lead to violent ends, something like that. And so I just want to keep that in mind, because here we have another example of foreshadowing where, you know, we know at the end Romeo and Juliet are going to die. We were told that in the prologue. So now we're seeing possibly some setup to why that's going to happen. And Friar Laurence is telling us now, you know, basically, you know, because they're starting off so passionately, like they just met, they fell in love, and everything was really fast and exciting, it's probably going to end similarly, where everything's going very fast and very quickly and people aren't thinking through their decisions. So we'll just keep that in mind before we move into Act 3, which is my favorite act. It's so messy. Everything goes terribly. It's wonderful. So please finish your comprehension questions and submit them so that I can see your answers. And then next week we'll start Act 3. Have a good weekend.